You know that feeling, right? You sit down to learn something new. Could be anything. Work, a hobby, just something you want to know about.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like you're just uh, banging your head against the wall. Information doesn't stick. Maybe a concept just seems impossible.
Yeah, it can be super frustrating.
So what if the problem isn't really you? What if it's more about how you're trying to learn? Like, are there actual, science-backed ways to make it easier, more effective?
Well, that's exactly the fascinating territory we're exploring today. We've been digging into a bunch of sources, really trying to pull back the curtain on how we actually learn.
Okay.
And we're drawing heavily from experts in, like neuroscience, cognitive science,
Yeah.
particularly insights like those in the book Learning How to Learn.
Right. So our mission here in this deep dive is basically to cut through all the noise,
Yeah.
find the most powerful bits, the practical techniques from these sources, and kind of give you tools you can use, like, right away.
The goal is to help you become a more effective learner, maybe save some time, and tune that frustration into, well, competence, hopefully.
Yeah, competence, curiosity. That sounds good.
And what's really cool, I think, about the story behind some of these techniques, some of the experts who talk about this stuff, they weren't always like natural whizzes at learning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one really struggled with math and science in school. Another found chemistry super tough. Someone else had a hard time with languages.
Okay, that's actually really encouraging.
Right.
It means that learning how to learn isn't just something you're born with. It's a skill, something you can actually develop.
Exactly. By understanding just a little bit about how your own brain works, you get these powerful tools. Not just for passing a test.
Right, for actually improving memory, tackling tricky problems, getting better at whatever you decide to do.
And hey, if learning has always felt kind of slow for you, definitely stick around.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll get into this later, but there might actually be some surprising, like, hidden advantages to that hiker brain idea.
interesting. Okay, well, let's get into it. Let's unpack this right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
The building blocks, neurons, and what do the sources call them? Brain links.
Yeah, brain links. So starting super small. Neurons, these are the basic cells in your brain.
Okay.
Billions of them. Tiny little things, but they're the fundamental units doing all the processing, handling information.
Billions? Wow.
Mm.
And how do they learn or talk to each other?
Well, they send signals, electrical signals, chemical signals, across these tiny little gaps between them. The gaps are called synapses.
Synapses, right.
You can kind of picture it like a little handshake, maybe, or like a tiny spark jumping across that gap.
So learning is about these sparks.
Pretty much, yeah. When you learn something new, you're essentially creating new pathways, new connections between these neurons, or strengthening old ones.
Okay.
And the more you practice that new thing, that skill, that piece of information, the more often those neurons talk across that synapse.
Ah, so the sparks happen more often.
Exactly. And that frequent sparking strengthens the connection. It makes it more robust, easier to trigger next time.
Like making friends, you mentioned.
Yeah.
The more you interact, the stronger the bond.
That's a great analogy. And the sources call neurons that have formed these strong teams through practice brain links.
Brain links. Got it.
They create these. You can visualize them as thought trails, maybe, neural pathways in your brain. So learning is fundamentally about building and strengthening these links.
That's fascinating because it means the brain isn't just like a fixed hard drive. It's changing all the time.
Mhm.
Is that neuroplasticity?
That's the core idea, yeah. Neuroplasticity. Your brain is moldable, like plastic clay, basically. It can change its shape, its structure throughout your entire life, not just when you're a kid.
So every time you learn something new, practice something,
Yeah.
you're literally rewiring your brain.
You are creating new connections, strengthening others. It's happening physically.
Wow. Okay, so our brains are actively changing, building these brain links. How do we actually use these connections well? The sources talk about two different ways of thinking, two modes.
They do, yeah. And understanding this is really key. You've got the focused mode and the diffuse mode.
Okay, focus mode seems pretty obvious. That's when you're really concentrating hard on one thing.
Exactly. Like trying to solve a specific math problem or really zeroing in on a definition you need to learn. Your attention is tight, directed, like a spotlight.
Right, and diffuse mode. That sounds looser.
It is, much looser. Diffuse mode is more of a relaxed state. Your thoughts aren't tightly focused. They're free to wander more broadly.
The pinball metaphor they used was really helpful for this, I thought.
Oh, yeah, the pinball mission.
Focused mode is like the bumpers are super close together, right?
Mhm.
So the pinball, your thought bounces around really fast but stays in one small area. following paths that already know.
Exactly. Whereas diffuse mode, it's like the bumpers are spread way out, all over the table. So your thoughts can bounce around much more widely, making new connections, hitting different ideas, linking things that didn't seem connected before.
That's often where the aha moments come from then.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
Or solutions to problems you were stuck on.
So you definitely need both.
Yeah.
Focused to get the details down, build those initial links, and then diffuse to see the bigger picture, make those broader connections, maybe solve problems when you're stuck.
Absolutely. And the sources point out a couple of ways you can get stuck, like maybe the first explanation just didn't click.
Right.
In that case, just focusing harder in focused mode probably won't help. You need to step back, maybe find a different explanation, look at the basics again.
Or the other way you get stuck is you've focused really hard, you've put the effort in, but you're just blocked. You can't figure it out.
Right. And that's the perfect signal to deliberately switch off the focused mode. Let your diffuse mode take over for a bit.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
You can choose to focus, but diffuse seems trickier.
It is. You can't usually force diffuse mode. It kind of happens when you let your mind relax and drift away from the specific task.
Like going for a walk, or taking a shower, or maybe just letting your mind wander while you're on the bus.
Exactly. All great examples. Bed, bath, bus, they say. Even sleeping on it is a powerful way to engage diffuse mode.
Like Magnus Carlsen, the chess player, going for walks during matches.
Perfect example. He's stepping away from the intense focus of the board, letting his diffuse thinking work on the problem in the background.
Okay, this makes sense. Neurons making brain links. Focused and diffuse modes building and connecting them. Where does all this information actually live? The sources use another metaphor for memory, right? The school bag and locker?
Yeah, that's a good one. Your working memory is like the school bag, and your long-term memory is the locker.
Okay, school bag. Working memory. Where is that physically?
Mostly in your prefrontal cortex, right behind your forehead. This is where you hold information you're actively thinking about, like right now, what you're juggling in your mind.
And it's small, right? Like an octopus with only a few arms.
Yeah, that's the visual they use. Working memory has a pretty limited capacity. It can hold maybe around 4 items, 4 chunks of information at once.
Only 4?
Roughly, yeah. And it doesn't hold them for long, maybe 10, 15 seconds, unless you actively keep paying attention to it, repeating it.
Okay.
Though that octopus does play a role in getting stuff into the locker, into long-term memory.
Right, so the school bag is small, temporary. The locker must be...
Oh, much bigger. The locker is your long-term memory. And unlike working memory, which is kind of localized, long-term storage is spread out across lots of different brain areas.
And the capacity is huge.
Practically unlimited. They describe it as like a magician's show, small outside, huge inside. You can store a lifetime's worth of facts, concepts, experiences, skills. It's vast.
So the whole game of learning, effectively, is basically getting the important stuff out of that little temporary school bag and securely into the giant permanent locker.
That's the core challenge, exactly. And thankfully, the sources give us some really powerful practical techniques to make that transfer happen much more effectively.
Okay, let's get into those techniques then. The first one, sounds absolutely critical, is active recall.
Yeah, this might be the single most important one, active recall. It's basically the opposite of just passively rereading your notes or highlighting everything.
So instead of just looking at the page again,
You look away. You close the book, cover your notes, and you force your brain to retrieve the information from scratch. Pull it out.
like after reading a section, you try to explain the main idea out loud, or maybe jot down the key points without looking.
Exactly. You are actively pulling it out of memory. And it's that effort, that struggle to retrieve, that really strengthens those brain links and embeds the information in your long-term memory.
That makes sense. It's like exercising a muscle, right? The effort makes it stronger.
It really does. And the research is clear. This doesn't just help you memorize facts. It builds actual understanding. And it really helps you perform better under pressure, like on a test.
Okay, so the sources suggest a 3-step process for powerful reading.
Yeah, basically. First, do a quick picture walk. Scan the headings, look at the pictures, read the summary if there is one, just get the gist.
Or get the lay of the land.
Second, read it carefully, focus, try to understand the details.
Right.
And third, immediately after a section or maybe at the end of a page, stop. Look away, use active recall, pull out those main ideas.
Got it. Picture walk, read carefully, recall.
And here's a great tip they offer. Try recalling the information in different places and at different times.
Oh, Like not just at your desk.
Right. Try recalling it while you're on the bus or waiting for a friend or just before you fall asleep. And do it without your notes.
Why does that help?
It makes the memory less tied to that one specific study environment. It makes the information more flexible, more accessible, wherever you happen to need it. It's like teaching your brain you might need this info anywhere, anytime.
Clever. Okay, next big technique. Tackling procrastination. This is a huge one for so many people, often using the Pomodoro technique.
It really is a massive hurdle, and the sources explain something interesting. Just thinking about doing something you don't like activates a pain center in the brain, the insular cortex.
Seriously, actual pain.
Well, a sensation of discomfort. And that discomfort is what often triggers us to procrastinate, to do something else, anything else, to make it stop.
So what's the number one tip to fight that?
Just get started. Honestly, the sources are pretty blunt about it. Getting started is often the hardest part, but once you actually begin, that feeling of discomfort usually fades pretty quickly.
And the Pomodoro technique is like a structured way to force yourself to just start.
Exactly. The classic method is set a timer. Maybe one of those kitchen timers shaped like a tomato, hence Pomodoro for 25 minutes.
Okay.
And for those 25 minutes, you work with intense focus, no distractions, phone off, notifications silenced.
And then after 25 minutes,
You take a short break, 5 minutes maybe, and importantly, you give yourself a little reward for completing that focus block.
and the goal isn't necessarily to finish the whole huge task in 25 minutes.
No, absolutely not. The goal is just to work hard and focused for those 25 minutes. Completing the interval is the achievement. Earning the break is the reward.
And the break is key, right? To let that diffuse mode kick in. So maybe do something totally different.
Definitely. Get up, stretch, walk around, maybe grab a drink of water. Avoid just switching to another mentally demanding task or checking your phone intensely. Let your brain relax a bit.
Some apps were mentioned too, like Forest, where you grow a virtual tree if you stay focused.
Yeah, tools like that can help gamify it. It's all about building helpful habits, really. Fighting those unhelpful zombie habits like, studying but constantly checking your phone.
Zombie habits. I like that.
You want to train helpful zombies, like the habit of turning your phone off when you start a Pomodoro timer. That allows your focused, helpful zombie to get to work.
Okay, so Pomodoro helps beat procrastination and build focus. What about just improving memory itself, making things stick better? The sources mention memory tricks, and that becoming a memory expert isn't some superpower.
Right. They tell the story of Nelson Dellis. This guy went from having a totally average memory to becoming the U.S. memory champion.
Wow.
It really shows that memory is a skill you can train, not just something you're born with.
And a key idea from him and others is that our brains are just way better at remembering pictures than abstract facts.
Much better. Think of abstract facts like trying to grab onto slippery toothpaste. Hard to hold.
Right.
But pictures, especially really vivid, maybe weird or funny pictures, those are much easier to stick somewhere in your mind, like taping a photo onto your mental locker door.
So Dellis has 5 main tips.
Yeah, pretty straightforward but powerful. 1, focus. Pay attention when you're trying to learn something. Seems obvious, but vital. Right.
2, practice, which is basically active recall again. Keep retrieving it.
Okay.
3, picture things. Turn those abstract facts into memorable images. Add movement, make them exaggerated or bizarre that helps them stick.
We could have visual.
4, store it. Connect that new picture or idea to something you already know well. Anchor it to existing knowledge.
Wink it up.
And 5, recall, recall, recall. Keep practicing pulling that information out over time to make it really permanent.
So flashcards or apps like Quizlet fit right into that recall practice.
Absolutely, they're built around that principle, and it creates this positive cycle. Practicing memorization actually improves your focus.
Yeah.
And having better focus makes it easier to memorize things in the first place.
What about that memory palace technique? That sounded really interesting, using places you know.
Yeah, the memory palace or method of loci, it leverages our brain's amazing visuospatial memory, our ability to remember places and routes.
How does it work? You take a route you know incredibly well, like walking through your own house or your route to school, and then you place vivid, memorable images of the things you want to remember at specific locations along that route.
So like a giant talking textbook on your sofa, maybe.
Exactly, something really weird and visual. Then, to recall the information, you just mentally walk through your palace, and the images pop back into your mind as you visit each location.
That sounds powerful. And another great way to practice recall you mentioned, explaining it to someone else.
Oh, it's one of the best. When you have to explain something clearly to another person, you have to retrieve it, organize it, articulate it.
Right, you find out pretty quickly what you don't really understand.
Exactly. It immediately highlights any gaps, and the act of explaining it really solidifies those brain links for you.
Okay, so we've got the basics, the thinking modes, memory systems, and these great techniques.
Ah.
Recall, Pomodoro, memory tricks. How do we go from just remembering stuff to becoming really good at something, like building expertise?
Right, that brings us to deliberate practice and interleaving. Experts basically have built up this huge interconnected network of strong brain links in their field.
Okay.
Getting there takes practice, but not just any practice, smart practice.
Deliberate practice. That means focusing on the things you find hard. Right. Stuff you haven't mastered yet.
Precisely. Instead of just doing what feels easy or comfortable, you push yourself slightly beyond your current abilities. That's where the growth happens.
And then there's interleaving. What's that about?
Interleaving is about mixing up different types of problems or different skills during a single practice session.
As opposed to blocking.
Yeah.
Like doing 20 problems of type A, then 20 of type B.
Exactly. Blocking feels productive because you get into a groove doing the same thing over and over. But interleaving, mixing up type A, type B, type C problems randomly is actually much better for long-term learning.
Why is that?
Because it forces you to first identify what kind of problem you're looking at and then choose the right technique or concept to apply. Blocking doesn't train that discrimination skill.
Like the example of learning to hammer screws because you only practice hammering, never learning when to use a screwdriver.
Perfect analogy. Interleaving builds flexibility. It helps you see the differences between concepts and learn when to apply each one. It leads to much deeper, more adaptable understanding.
So this applies to math, music, sports, pretty much any skill.
Absolutely. Mixing different types of math problems, practicing different musical scales or techniques randomly, working on different tennis serves in one session, it all builds that crucial ability to choose the right tool for the job.
Benjamin Franklin apparently did something like this for writing.
Yeah, he'd read essays he admired, jot down notes, wait a bit, then try to reconstruct the sentences from his notes. Then he'd compare his version to the original.
So recall, recreation, comparison. You could do that for art or coding.
Exactly. It's active, it involves recall, and it forces you to analyze and apply concepts in a mixed-up way. It's the opposite of, say, lazily playing old piano songs you already know while reading a comic book that's comfortable, but it's not deliberate practice or interleaving. Not much real learning happens there.
Okay, beyond these specific techniques, the sources really emphasize some broader factors, lifestyle, environment, that seriously boost learning.
Oh yeah, massively. Sleep is probably top of the list. They call it your nightly brain update, like a software update.
So a lot of the actual learning consolidation happens while you sleep.
A huge amount. Remember those brain links, the synapses and dendritic spines that start forming when you learn? Sleep is when the brain really gets to work solidifying them, building the physical structure. It's like laying down the mortar between the bricks.
Wow. And it cleans the brain too.
Yes. Research shows that during sleep, brain cells actually shrink a bit, opening up space between them. This allows cerebrospinal fluid to flow through more easily and wash away metabolic waste products that build up during the day.
So lack of sleep means a dirty, foggy brain.
Pretty much, yeah. That cleaning process doesn't happen properly.
And sleep is also like the ultimate diffuse mode, right? Making creative connections.
Totally. Your brain isn't constrained by focused attention. Ideas can bump into each other in new ways. That's why sleeping on a problem often works. You wake up with a solution or a new perspective.
Even naps help.
Yeah, even short naps seem to help move information from the hippocampus, that temporary holding area, into the cortex for more permanent storage. It kind of clears space for new learning.
So how much sleep do we actually need?
Consistency is key. And getting enough sleep opportunity time. For teenagers, the sources often suggest at least 8 hours, maybe even 9 or 10. A good indicator is, if you consistently feel tired during the day, you're probably not getting enough sleep.
Makes sense.
Oh, and an interesting tip. Doing a little bit of focused review of what you learned right before bed can sometimes prompt your brain to process it while you sleep. You might even dream about it.
Okay, sleep is crucial. What about exercise?
Also hugely important for the brain. Exercise pumps more blood to the brain, which is vital, and it particularly benefits areas like the hippocampus.
The hippocampus.
Yeah.
That's key for memory, right? Facts and events.
Yeah.
Looks like a seahorse.
That's the one. Exercise helps it function better and is linked to the growth of new neurons, their neurogenesis.
New neurons. You can grow new brain cells.
Yes, especially in the hippocampus. And exercise helps these new neurons survive and integrate, particularly if you're also engaging in new learning.
And there's that chemical, BDNF.
Right. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of it like brains definitely need food,
Yeah.
but the food is released by exercise.
Okay.
BDNF is like miracle grow for your neurons. It helps them grow strong, stay healthy, connect better. It literally makes synapses and dendritic spines grow larger and work more efficiently.
So exercise physically builds a better brain for learning.
Absolutely. Plus, it's a great diffuse mode activity itself, gets you away from focused work, and releases other mood-boosting chemicals that can help with creativity and focus later. Remember Julius Yago learning javelin from YouTube? He combined that study with intense physical training.
Right. Okay, sleep, exercise. What about where you study? Does the environment matter?
It can, yeah. The sources suggest that studying the same material in different locations can actually be beneficial.
Really? Why?
Well, if you always study in the exact same spot, say your desk in your room, your memory of that material can become really strongly tied to that specific place.
Ah, like the octopus suckers metaphor again, all stuck to one spot.
Exactly. By changing your study location, sometimes your room, the library, a quiet cafe, maybe even outside, you force your brain to make the memory less dependent on one specific set of environmental cues.
So the information becomes more generally accessible no matter where you are.
That's the idea. It creates more robust, less context-dependent memories.
What about music? Lots of people study with music on.
Yeah, this is one where the sources basically say, you need to experiment and be honest with yourself. Be your own learning scientist on this one.
Okay.
The general research suggests that loud music, especially music with lyrics, is usually distracting. It takes up some of that very limited working memory capacity. One of your octopus arms is busy processing the song.
Right. What about quieter instrumental music?
That might help some people focus, but it's very individual. It might depend on the person, the type of music, and even the subject they're studying. Some find it helps create a bubble of concentration. Others still find it pulls their attention.
And a key point, there's usually no music during tests or exams.
Exactly. So if you become overly reliant on music to get into a focused state, that could be a problem when you need to perform without it. The advice is really to honestly assess, is this actually helping my deep concentration, or is it just making study time feel less boring, but maybe less effective?
Makes sense. And then just briefly, the basics.
Right.
Healthy eating helps the brain function,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, lean protein all provide essential nutrients.
And managing distractions, especially the smartphone.
Crucial. Putting it on silent, putting it out of sight during focused work blocks, it makes a huge difference to maintaining concentration.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. The brain mechanics, specific learning techniques, lifestyle boosters. But learning isn't always easy. What about when we hit roadblocks? Getting stuck? Test anxiety?
Yeah, the sources offer concrete strategies for those challenges too. For getting stuck on homework, or even during a test, they recommend the hard start technique.
Hard start. Start with the hardest problem. That sounds like a recipe for getting stuck immediately.
It seems that way, but here's the technique. Yes, start with a hard problem first. Give it a genuine try. But if after, say, 5 or 10 minutes, you're totally stuck and feeling that frustration rise, stop. Disconnect from it completely. Move on to an easier problem, you can probably solve.
Oh, okay. So you don't just keep banging your head against it.
Yeah, right. And while you're working on the easier problem, guess what your brain is doing in the background?
Letting the diffuse mode work on the hard one.
Exactly. You've loaded the hard problem into your mind, and now, by shifting focus, you allow your diffuse mode to work on it without the pressure. Then later, you can circle back to the hard problem, often with fresh eyes or a new insight.
And learning to disconnect like that is a really important skill for tests too, right? To manage time.
Absolutely vital. You can't afford to spend half the test stuck on one question. Practicing this technique helps you learn to recognize when you're stuck and move on efficiently.
Okay, what about test nerves? That horrible panic feeling where your mind just goes blank.
Yeah, that's rough. Panic often leads to shallow, rapid chest breathing. So the first step is physical. Practice deep, slow belly breathing. Imagine your abdomen is like a sail filling with air.
Okay, calming the body.
This sends a signal to your nervous system to calm down. And then there's a mental shift you can practice. Instead of interpreting those physical sensations, the racing heart, the butterflies, as fear, try reframing them as excitement. Tell yourself, this test has got me excited to do my best, rather than, this test is making me afraid.
Huh. Acknowledge the feeling, but change the label.
Exactly. It can actually shift your emotional response and improve performance.
And when you're checking your answers on a test, just rereading them might not catch mistakes.
Right. Your brain can trick you into seeing what you expect to see. So try blinking hard, shifting your attention for a moment, maybe looking away from the paper.
Like a mental reset.
Kind of. Then when you look back, don't just check the calculation steps. Ask the big picture question. Does this answer actually make sense? Does it seem reasonable in the context of the problem?
That's a good point.
And maybe review your answers in a different order than you did them originally. That can help break the pattern and make you spot things you missed.
Good tips. And for preparing for tests, there was a simple but powerful idea. Try making up your own test questions.
Yes. Think like the teacher. What concepts are most important? How might they be tested? Trying to anticipate the questions is a surprisingly effective way to focus your studying on what really matters.
Okay, now let's circle back to something you hinted at way earlier. The idea that maybe being a slower thinker isn't a bad thing. The hiker brain versus race car brain.
Ah, yes, that's a great metaphor. Some people do have race car brains. They process information super fast, zoom straight to an answer.
Which sounds good.
It can be. But sometimes, moving that fast, they might miss some important details or nuances along the way.
Okay, and the hiker brains.
They take a slower, more methodical path. It might take them longer to get to the destination, the answer, but because they're moving more slowly, they notice more of the scenery.
Like,
They might see the underlying principles more clearly, notice subtle connections, process the information more deeply. They often build a richer, more robust understanding because they've spent more time exploring the terrain.
so slow definitely doesn't mean less smart or less capable.
Absolutely not. The sources really stress this. A hiker brain can understand things just as well, and often more deeply and creatively, precisely because they've engaged with the material more thoroughly.
And there was that counterintuitive point about having a weaker working memory maybe being an advantage sometimes.
Yeah, it sounds weird, right? But if your mental school bag can't hold as much clutter, your brain might actually be forced to find more elegant simplifications.
Because it can't juggle all the complexities at once.
Possibly. It might lead to more creative leaps or seeing the core idea more clearly, simply because there's less mental noise.
That's a really powerful way to reframe things if you feel like you learn more slowly than others.
It really is. Understanding these differences isn't about making excuses. It's about recognizing your own strengths and how your brain works best.
Okay, one last big area that the sources touched on. Broadening your learning, not just sticking to one thing.
Yeah, this was important. They shared Barb's story. She initially focused only on her passion for languages, which was great, but it also inadvertently closed off other potential paths early on.
And contrasted that with Santiago Ramon y Cajal, the neuroscientist.
Right. The father of modern neuroscience, Nobel Prize winner. He was also passionate about art and photography. And that combination of scientific rigor and artistic visualization was key to his breakthroughs.
So the advice is, learn something totally different sometimes, outside your main focus.
Exactly. Pick up something unrelated. It builds mental flexibility, helps you avoid getting stuck in rut think by seeing problems from completely different angles.
And it might spark unexpected connections.
Definitely. Plus, you never know what doors it might open later in life. Learning broadly makes you more adaptable, more creative.
It really sounds like learning itself is the meta skill, something to keep practicing across everything we do.
It really is. And that leads to the final encouragement from the sources. Become your own learning scientist.
Experiment on yourself.
Basically, yes. Pay attention to your own process. Try out these different techniques. Pomodoro, active recall, changing study spots, interleaving. See what actually works best for you and for different subjects.
Maybe keep a simple journal. Track sleep, exercise, where you studied, what techniques you used, how focused you felt.
It could be really helpful. Collecting a little data on yourself can help you figure out how to optimize your own learning. Because ultimately, the ability to learn is just an amazing privilege, isn't it?
It really is.
We have this incredible tool, our brain. Understanding how it works lets us make the most of it. Like Alistair's story deciding to finally learn chemistry as an adult after avoiding it his whole life. It didn't just give him knowledge, it actually made him a better teacher and helped him connect with his students more.
That's fantastic. And speaking of connecting and reinforcing your own learning, One of the best ways to make sure you've really learned something.
Teach it to someone else.
Right.
Whether it's explaining it to a friend, a family member, maybe tutoring a younger student. The act of teaching forces you to retrieve the information, organize it, simplify it.
You have to understand it well enough to explain it clearly.
Exactly. It's fantastic recall practice, and it immediately shows you where your own understanding might still be a bit fuzzy. It strengthens your own brain links incredibly well.
So you become the teacher and solidify your own learning in the process.
It really brings everything full circle, doesn't it?
It really does. So wow, we've covered a lot in this deep dive. From those tiny sparks between neurons all the way up to big strategies for memory, focus, and building expertise.
Yeah, hopefully you now have a toolbox full of practical, science-backed ways to approach learning with maybe a bit less frustration and more confidence.
You can improve your memory, figure out how to get unstuck, tackle procrastination, become more skilled, more knowledgeable.
Not just in one thing, but developing the skill to learn whatever you choose to tackle next.
We hit on some really key takeaways, that power of active recall, how vital sleep and exercise are for the brain's actual structure, the benefits of mixing things up with interleaving and changing study spots.
And hopefully a new perspective on your own thinking style, whether you're a hiker or a race car, recognizing the strengths in how you learn.
So wrapping this up, given everything we've talked about, all these insights into how your amazing brain works and these practical tools, maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is, what's that subject or that skill that always seemed too difficult? What could you finally tackle next now that you have a better idea of how to learn it effectively?